Red Bull didn't dominate the Bahrain test on the timing sheets. They dominated it in something far more dangerous. Over 400 laps completed. 0 engine failures. 344 km/h top speed without DRS. And not a single visible moment of panic. While Ferrari overheated. While others struggled with clipping. Max Verstappen was running 10 lap sequences with identical energy deployment. No fade at the end of the straight. No battery recharge laps. No instability. That is not preseason noise. That is technical control. And here's what nobody is talking about. Telemetry suggests Verstappen was lifting early in high-speed corners. Which means the RB22 may not have shown its full qualifying pace yet. If this was not maximum attack, then what happens when they turn everything up? Stay with me, because what the Bahrain data really reveals is not just speed. It is dominance hiding in plain sight. Subscribe now, because this could already be checkmate before race 1 even begins. Day 1 is where the real story begins. Because Red Bull did not arrive trying to impress anyone. They arrived trying to validate everything. 136 laps on the opening day alone. No stoppages. No overheating. No hybrid warnings. That matters more than a headline lap time. And here's why. New regulations usually expose weaknesses immediately. Energy clipping. Thermal instability. Correlation gaps between simulator and track. Red Bull showed none of it. But that's not even the most important part. Look closely at the acceleration traces. The RB22 does not explode out of corners like Ferrari. It builds speed progressively. Smooth torque application. Controlled electrical deployment. Which means they are not dumping battery early on the straight. They are distributing it. That alone explains why Verstappen did not suffer visible clipping at the end of long straights. And under these 2026 energy rules, sustained deployment is everything. Other teams showed surge, then fade. Red Bull showed consistency. Now connect that to the side pod cannon exit concept. Instead of wasting hot air, they redirect it toward the beam wing and diffuser. That energizes airflow at lower speeds, which increases rear stability without adding drag, which allows them to run a smaller rear wing, which explains the 344 km/h top speed. Traction and straight line speed at the same time. That combination is rare. Usually, you sacrifice one for the other. Red Bull appears to have avoided that trade-off. And this detail changes the whole picture. Because when a car is stable at low speed and efficient at high speed, it becomes adaptable to almost any circuit. Then there is the hybrid recovery system. Toto Wolff openly admitted Red Bull is in another league in energy recovery. Verstappen completed 10 lap sequences with identical deployment patterns. No recharge laps. No sudden power drops. That means harvesting efficiency under braking is exceptional. And if you harvest more efficiently, you deploy more confidently. Which means you defend better. Attack longer. Control race pace. This is not flashy. It is calculated. And calculated dominance is far more dangerous than emotional speed. By the end of day 1, Red Bull had not set the fastest time. But they had shown something more valuable. A platform born stable. A power unit born reliable. And a development direction that looks mature from the very first lap. The question was never whether they were fast. The question was how much they were hiding. And day 2 would make that question even louder. Day 2 is where Red Bull's silence became even more unsettling. Because while Ferrari went hunting for the fastest lap, Red Bull focused almost entirely on race simulation. Heavy fuel. Long stints. Consistent deployment. And this is where the Bahrain data starts to look intimidating. With the C3 compound, degradation was almost non-existent. While rivals were losing half a second per lap after 8 laps, Verstappen remained within a tenth up to lap 15. That is not marginal. That is structural advantage. And here's why it matters. Under the new energy regulations, aggressive torque delivery destroys rear tires. If you spike deployment mid-corner exit, temperatures rise instantly. Red Bull's torque trace looks progressive. No violent surge. Which suggests the anti-squat rear suspension is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Keeping the platform stable under acceleration. Preventing rear tire slip. Preserving surface temperature. And when you preserve temperature, you preserve strategy. Longer first stints. More flexible pit windows. Ability to attack late in a race instead of defending degradation. But here is the part most people completely overlooked. Isaac Hadjar drove the car for a full session. And his feedback mirrored Verstappen's almost perfectly. Neutral balance. Predictable rotation. No sudden rear instability. That detail is crucial. Because if a car only works for a generational driver, it is impressive. If it works for a rookie with limited experience, it is fundamentally well-balanced. And a well-balanced platform means development becomes easier. Now let us talk about the engine. The Red Bull-Ford partnership entered this season with skepticism. New manufacturer. New hybrid architecture. Many expected reliability issues. There were none. Zero red flags caused by the power unit. The sound itself was different. A deeper combustion tone. A pronounced electric whistle under braking. That whistle likely indicates aggressive energy harvesting. Which explains why Verstappen did not need dedicated recharge laps. He harvested efficiently while racing. That is hybrid intelligence. And hybrid intelligence wins under these regulations. Now here is where it becomes even more uncomfortable for rivals. Observers noticed the floor edges looked suspiciously simple. Raw carbon. Minimal visible vortex generators. There is growing belief that Red Bull ran a basic test floor. If that theory is correct, then the aerodynamic ceiling has not yet been revealed. Imagine this. They are already leading race simulations. Already the fastest in straight line speed. Already flawless in reliability. And they might not even be using the final floor specification. That possibility changes everything. Because it suggests Bahrain was not a performance peak. It was a validation exercise. And that brings us to the biggest hidden detail of all. Telemetry suggests Verstappen lifted early in high-speed sector corners during his quicker laps. Estimates suggest as much as 0.8 per lap still unused. 0.8 in modern Formula One is enormous. If that margin exists, then Red Bull was not chasing headlines. They were protecting information. And when a team can afford to hide pace while still looking comfortable, that is not pre-season optimism. That is calculated superiority. By the end of day 2, the question was no longer whether Red Bull was competitive. The question was how much of the real RB22 we had actually seen. Day 3 confirmed what the first 2 days were hinting at. Red Bull was not chasing speed. They were testing control. Full race simulations. Sustained deployment. Heavy fuel loads. And nothing broke. No overheating warnings. No emergency cooling solutions. No visible drop in deployment at the end of long straights. That alone separates them from the rest of the grid. Because under the new regulations, sustained energy is the hardest thing to achieve. Many teams can produce one explosive lap. Very few can reproduce the same energy profile 10 laps in a row. Verstappen did exactly that. And that tells you something deeper. The integration between chassis and Ford power unit is already mature. No correlation panic. No frantic radio messages about temperature spikes. Just repetition. And repetition wins championships. Now look at braking. The only minor concern Verstappen mentioned was brake-by-wire feel in extreme heat. That is subtle. That is refinement level. When your biggest issue is pedal feel, you are not firefighting. You are polishing. And that is a dangerous position to be in this early. Then there is fuel consumption. Helmut Marko admitted it is better than projected. Better fuel efficiency means lighter starting weight. Lighter weight means faster lap times at the beginning of stints, which compounds the tire advantage. Because less weight means less stress on the rear axle. And less stress means slower degradation. This is how advantages stack. Not through drama. Through accumulation. Now zoom out. Red Bull completed the test with the best race pace estimate. A projected advantage of 4 to 6 tenths per lap over Ferrari in race trim. In modern Formula 1, that margin is enormous. That is not a tenth here or there. That is control over strategy. Control over undercuts. Control over the race tempo itself. And remember, there are strong indications that qualifying mode was never fully used. No clear sign of maximum engine mapping. No visible final push laps with aggressive deployment. If they are already ahead without using everything, the ceiling becomes frightening. This is why the Bahrain data is so important. Not because Red Bull topped every session, but because they never looked uncomfortable. They never looked reactive. They looked prepared. And when a team begins a new regulation cycle prepared, history suggests something uncomfortable for their rivals. Dominance tends to follow. The real question now is simple. Did Red Bull just execute the perfect preseason? Or are we about to witness a gap that only grows once the lights go out?